Look at a map of the world. Find Australia. Now here is a fact that should stop you for a second. Human beings were standing on that continent 65,000 years ago, and there has never been a way to walk there. Not now, not during the Ice Age, not at any point in the entire history of the planet. Australia has always been an island. During the deepest ice ages, enough water was locked up in ice that sea levels dropped by more than 100 meters. Coastlines moved, islands joined together. You could walk from Asia a very long way south. But then you hit the water, and it does not stop. There is a line running down through Indonesia. On one side, Asian animals. On the other side, Australian ones. Tigers here, kangaroos there, and almost nothing crosses. That line is a trench of deep ocean that never dried out. Even at the lowest sea level ever recorded, the crossing to Australia still meant open water. Somewhere between 70 and 100 kilometers of it. Out of sight of land for some of it. So we know something for certain. 65,000 years ago, somebody built something, got into it, and went out onto open sea. That is the first vehicle. Not a cart, not a sledge, not anything with a wheel on it. The wheel does not show up for another 60,000 years. The first vehicle humans ever built floated. And here's the frustrating part. We have never found one. Not a single boat from that period. Not a fragment. Not a plank. Nothing. And that absence has confused people for a long time. It looks like evidence that they did not have boats. It is not. It is a preservation problem. Think about what a boat is made of. Wood, bark, reeds, fiber, hide. Every single one of those things is organic, and organic material rots. Bury a stone tool for 60,000 years, and you dig up a stone tool. Bury a wooden canoe, and you dig up nothing at all. Soil bacteria eat it. Water and air finish the job. Unless conditions are almost perfect, wood is simply gone. So our record of early boats is not a record of boats. It is a record of accidents. The oldest boat we have ever found is called the Pesse canoe. It turned up in the Netherlands in 1955 during roadworks. A digger clipped something in a peat bog. It is a hollowed-out log of Scots pine, about 3 meters long, and roughly 10,000 years old. It only survived because peat bogs are strange places. They are waterlogged and acidic, and almost completely without oxygen, which means the bacteria that eat wood cannot live there. The bog pickled it. When they found it, people argued about whether it was even a boat. It looked too crude. It looked too heavy. So somebody built a copy and put it in the water. It floated perfectly well. It was tippy and slow, and it took some skill to sit in, but it worked. And that boat is 10,000 years old. The people crossing to Australia did it 55,000 years before the Pesse canoe was carved. So we are not looking at the first boat. We are looking at the oldest one that happened to fall in a bog. Now, what did the first vehicle look like? The honest answer is, we do not know. But we can work backwards, because there are only so many ways to make something float with stone tools. And the most likely answer, the one that appears independently all over the world, is the dugout. You take a tree and you remove the middle of it. That is it. That is the whole idea. And it is far harder than it sounds. Start with the tree. It has to be big enough to hollow out and still hold a person. It has to be straight. It has to be a species that resists rot and does not split as it dries. And you have to get it on the ground without a metal saw. So you burn it. You pack wet clay around the trunk at the height you want the cut, leave a gap, and keep a fire burning in that gap for hours or days. The clay stops the flames climbing the rest of the tree. The fire eats through the middle. Eventually, the trunk comes down. Then you do the same thing again, lengthways along the top. You lay a line of embers down the length of the log. You fan them. You let them char into the wood, and then you scrape out the burnt layer with a stone adze. Char, scrape, over and over, for weeks. And the hardest part of the whole job is knowing when to stop. The walls have to be thin enough that the boat is not too heavy to float well. But if you burn through the hull anywhere, the entire thing is firewood, and you have lost a month of work. You cannot see the outside from the inside. There is no measuring tool. You learn it by sound, by the color of the charred wood, and by having done it before and got it wrong. Which is why this is not a thing that one clever person invents on a Tuesday. It is a craft passed down by people teaching other people. Now, why does hollowing it out matter so much? Because of what floating actually is. An object floats when it pushes aside a weight of water equal to its own weight. That is the whole rule. Push aside more water than you weigh, and you sit on the surface. Push aside less, and you sink. So take a solid log. It floats just about. Wood is a little lighter than water, so it sits low, mostly submerged, with a few centimeters showing. Now put a person on it. That person weighs 70 kilos, and the log has almost no capacity left. It rolls, it goes under, and you are swimming. So a solid log is not a boat. It is a float, and barely that. Now hollow it out. You have taken heavy wood out of the middle and replaced it with air. The outside shape is the same, so it can still push aside the same amount of water. But the thing itself now weighs a fraction of what it did. And all of that difference is capacity. That is cargo. That is people. That is water and food for a journey. Hollowing the log does not just make room to sit. It is the thing that turns a log into a vehicle. Then there is the second problem. A round log rolls. It is the least stable shape you could possibly choose. So you flatten the bottom. You leave the sides thicker and lower. You make it wider than it needs to be. Every one of those choices costs you speed and buys you the ability to not die. And when you have all of that, you have the first vehicle, a hollowed tree shaped by fire and stone that carries more than it weighs. Now take it back to that crossing. 70 kilometers of open ocean in a hollowed tree with no sail, no keel, and no way to steer except paddling. The currents through those straits are genuinely dangerous. They run hard and they change. And if they take you out into the Indian Ocean and you are never seen again. And here is the detail that changes the whole story. This was not one lucky accident. For a population to survive on a new continent, you need a founding group. Not one fisherman blown off course. You need dozens of people. You need men and women. You need them arriving close enough together in time to have children together. Some estimates put the number in the low hundreds, which means this was not a drift. It was a crossing made repeatedly by people who intended to make it and who came back and did it again. That is not an accident. That is a boat, a plan, and a reason, and it gets stranger. From the last island in the chain, on a clear day, you might see nothing at all. No shape on the horizon. No hint of what is over there. Some researchers think they were watching for clues. Smoke on the horizon from lightning fires. Birds flying out in the evening and coming back in the morning from a direction with no land in it. Cloud that sits still above something you cannot see, which means the first vehicle was not built to make a journey easier. Nobody hollowed out that tree to save time on a trip they were already making. They built it to reach a place they were not certain existed. That is the part I keep coming back to. Every vehicle since then has had a destination. The cart goes to the next field. The ship goes to a port on a chart. The plane files a flight plan. The rocket has coordinates. The first one had a hunch. And look at what that one idea unlocked. Once you can cross water, every coastline becomes a road. Rivers stop being barriers and start being highways. You can move faster downstream than you can walk in a day. Fishing stops being something you do from the shore. You can reach water that is deep enough to hold real food and bring back more than you could ever carry overland. Obsidian was being moved between islands more than 20,000 years ago, which means trade across open water is older than agriculture, older than pottery, older than any city that has ever existed. And island by island, over thousands of years, people kept going, further out into the Pacific, across distances that make that first crossing look modest. By the time anybody carved the first wheel, human beings had already reached almost every habitable place on this planet, and they got to most of them in something that started as a tree. So when people say the wheel was the beginning of transport, they are out by about 60,000 years and by an entire ocean. The first vehicle ever created was a tree with the middle taken out, burnt and scraped into shape by people with no metal, who then pushed it into the sea and paddled away from everything they knew toward a horizon with nothing on it. And they were right. It was there,